Hi, I'm Femi OK. Today on the stream, we're talking African footy at the World Cup. Could an African team ever win the FIFA World Cup? Not necessarily this year, but any World Cup year. As Shakira once said, this time for Africa? We're all pundits as far as footy is concerned, so you are very welcome to take part in today's show. Just drop your comments in the YouTube comment section. Be part of the discussion.
I'm really excited to be here, for I'm a Ghanaian and I need to support my own. So I came all the way from Ghana to support my team. Ghana will get to finals. That's all I believe.
The chances, considering the other World Cup, it's difficult for an African team to win the World Cup, but we hope. We have Senegal that technically are a good team, and I hope they can win the World Cup. In 2002 they reached the semi-finals. I think this year they can reach semi-final, maybe final, or win the World Cup. Why not?
Definitely we are supporting Ghana. We definitely do have a high chance of winning, looking at the team, the young energetic team we are coming with. So we are definitely going to win. Unless there's any other team that is better than Ghana. But for now, I believe we are the best team so far we can watch in the World Cup.
Yes.
The first of
Africa!
Really, is it the time for Africa? Let us have a conversation about African football at the FIFA World Cup. We've got Kingsley, Masood, Sadiq. Welcome to you all, gentlemen. Kingsley, please say hello to our audience around the world. Tell them who you are, what you do.
Thanks, Femi. Thanks for having me. I'm Kingsley Pungang. I'm a sports entrepreneur and investor running a company called Rainbow Sports Global, based out of the United States.
Good to have you. Masood, welcome and congratulations so far. Please say hello to our audience, tell them who you are and what you do.
Thank you for having me on this show. I'm Masood Didi Dramani, the assistant coach of Ghana Blasters and also head of football of Right to Dream Foundation.
All of the Ghanaian fans are now glued to the TV, waiting to see what you've got to say. Sadiq, welcome to the stream. Please introduce yourself to our international viewers.
Thank you very much, Femi, for having me. I'm Sadiq Adams, an African football journalist. I work in Accra with Angel Broadcasting Network, and I substantially cover African football from all length and breadth and being part of all the teams at this World Cup.
All right, gentlemen, I am going to show you the 5 African coaches of the 5 teams currently playing in the FIFA World Cup. Let's have a look at them. And I just want your instant reaction. Kingsley, first thing that comes to mind when you see this team.
I think seeing that is very heartwarming. It's a validation of African expertise, the validation of African excellence, considering that all of these gentlemen are of African extraction.
Sadiq, first thing that comes to mind when you see 5 African coaches, 5 African teams, and they're actually nationals of the countries that they coach. Amazing or not?
Groundbreaking.
Yes.
That's groundbreaking, in my opinion.
Yeah.
This is one of the best I've seen in terms of African football. It's substantially because a lot of people do not have belief in African coaches, but to have our own men leading our own teams at the World Cup and performing creditably well so far, it's something that is soothing to me as an African football journalist, and I hope this continues for many more years.
Masood, I'm wondering if we're setting the bar a little bit low, though, because there are 50-something countries on the African continent, and we've got 5 teams at the World Cup. So when you see those 5 coaches, candidly, what do you actually see?
It's just a matter of breaking barriers and also beginning to think about creation of success by taking the responsibility of well-educated coaches across the globe and representing the continent and also becoming ambassadors of their respective countries. And so seeing 4 other nationals of other countries means that Africa is ready to take care of its own affairs.
Let's put those coaches back up again, because I'm just going to ask Masood, who's the best coach? Put them up. Or should I put those coaches back on? Put them back up. I want to. Yes.
But it's
who's the best coach?
It's very interesting and not to disrespect anyone.
Yes.
Every potential African, grassroots coach is a potential national team coach, and so the most important aspect is that every coach out of the 5 is a representative of Africa and also an ambassador of their respective countries, irrespective of which country he coaches. What is important is that we are representing Africa and we are ambassadors of our respective countries.
Well said, you really are a team player. Earlier we spoke to Solas, and Solas is the senior editor of Pulse Sports. This is what he told us about those 5 African coaches.
I think it's definitely a positive for Africa that all of its representatives at this World Cup are, helmed by local coaches. I mean, this is something we've always clamored for. Our local coaches could do with the exposure, could do with strutting their stuff on the biggest stage and testing themselves against some of the elite managers in the game. I think this is something we'll see more and more going forward. These national teams have previously been helmed by foreign managers who don't necessarily understand the landscape and the setting of African football. This problem does not exist with local coaches. These guys understand the terrain, they understand how to work with the FA, and they also know how to tap into the players' emotions. So
Sadiq, as a sports journalist, what have been your highlights so far? And I'm going to be very focused on the African teams. How have they performed? How are they doing? Sadiq. Do we have Sadiq? Is Sadiq with us? Sadiq seems to have frozen. Yes, Sadiq, go ahead.
Yeah. I think that the first round of matches were quite disappointing, but they bounced back nicely. Ghana, Senegal, Morocco have done massively in bouncing back in the second round of matches. And this is enough testament of the fact that what they used to say African teams do not have the mettle to fight at this level. But what the 3 teams have done is clear indication of what African teams can do if they put in the shifts and also pay attention to the little details. In my opinion, so far, so good. We already have one of the 5 teams in the knockout stage, which to me is a very massive news for African teams.
Yeah. I'm just thinking, Kingsley, your highlights so far of how the African teams are performing. It's a little bit patchy, but Senegal is going through to the final 16, which is great.
Yes.
Who else might do that?
I think Morocco have a very decent chance of going to the second round. I think the Moroccan Federation have had a strategy for the last 5 years, and that shows in the display of the first game beating Belgium, which is one of the highest ranked teams in the world. I think Ghana has a decent chance. It'll be a very, very tough game against Uruguay, but I think the Ghanaian boys are up for it. They proved against Portugal, a leading European team, that they could hold their own. They had a very good victory against Korea, which is not a pushover. And I think the third game
that was Ghana such an exciting game
will be
that South
Korea. It will be
Korea
a very exciting game and
so good.
And there's some scores to settle on that one.
Oh my God, so good. Masood, how were you? How was your heart doing during that game? South Korea playing Ghana, and Ghana was ahead, and then South Korea drew, and then it was 2-2, and then what happened, Masood?
Absolutely, we were in a very calm and in a very positive mood at that moment as coaches.
Yeah.
We will sit back and then really have strong belief in what we had instituted, with all due respect to our opposition, and also knowing what our strengths and weaknesses of the team is. And knowing very well that we have game changers on the bench and could vary so many aspects of the game. But having said this, meant that in the finals you cannot underestimate any team.
Yeah.
Any team that is at this level is a team that holds comes with the best and highest respect in terms of football, and it's important to always believe in a comprehensive approach in terms of what you have been doing.
So, Masood, what can you tell us about the way that the Ghanaian team play? Without giving too much away, what is it that they have? What is your particular Black Star magic?
I think that we have instituted a clear style of play. We have instituted a clear structure. We have instituted
What is the play? Coach, what is the play? What's that style of play?
Yeah, the style of play is a complete structure that tells what you do when you have the ball, what you do when you don't have the ball.
The
what
coach
you do
isn't
in
telling
between.
us anything.
This
He's not
in
going to
between
tell
is
us
the key.
what they do. Just so they
Yes,
have a plan for doing it.
Yes, and
Kingsley, when were you
the key
going to...
moment?
Yeah, yes, go ahead.
The key moment is in
Coach.
between the two aspects.
Yeah.
When you have the ball and then you lose the ball, what you have to be doing.
All right.
And
So,
when you
so
don't have
Coach,
it,
these are
and you
big
win, what you have
words,
to
right?
do.
These are big words. If we don't see you in the final 16, we know that the plan didn't work out. All right, some thoughts here from YouTube. Rudy's 1997. I am confident that Morocco could reach the semi-finals. Sadiq, quick response to that. Morocco in the semi-finals, yes, no?
They have a very good team, very great team, led by a coach who is very much more understanding of their situation and environment, a coach with so much ambition. I think that Morocco have a very fantastic team to be able to punch above their weight this time around. Semi-finals is tough, but I believe they can.
Back to YouTube. There is so much love for Senegal and Ghana in YouTube. Hi, fans. I see you. Schultzy100 says, it's about time. Sick of the big nations winning this thing. Kingsley, instant reaction to that. The big nations, they always walk away with the big prize. Could a smaller nation do it?
Yeah, a smaller nation could prove a surprise. There's always an exception to every rule. But the fact is the big nations have an edge because if you look at how the tournament is set up, Europe, which is a very small continent, is overrepresented at the World Cup. They have more resources actually to prepare for World Cups. And football is a function of population, culture, and economy. And you see that most of the countries that won the World Cup have a population of 40 million plus.
Yeah.
So I think we are waiting for a surprise, but it's also critically important to be realistic.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. We talked to some fans who were in Qatar, African football fans, about how you develop the game so that there one day will be, maybe it's in the next few weeks, there will be an African team picking up the FIFA World Cup. This is what they told us about developing the game.
Africa needs support when it comes to football. You know, there are many teams in Africa, they are not paid well because there's not much money in Africa. So being a player in Africa is difficult.
There are so many obstacles. The money, the lack of money, the lack of facilities in Africa, you know, for the development of the youngs, for the youngsters to play, the fields. As an example, in Tunisia, the fields are not so great for the youngster to develop in.
More about the budget being assigned to the sports military and other sports. Mainly that, because you need money to grow a sport, right? I think that's it.
Infrastructure, you realize that most countries have huge infrastructure right from the young age, for the young players to start preparing. So I'm sure over time you also get there.
Kingsley, let's talk about infrastructure and developing the game. What's the development that needs for the African game? Is it even fair to talk about an entire continent as having a style of playing football, Kingsley?
I think Africans have the natural endowment. We've produced athletes across the board. And let's not underestimate Africa's potential. Africa has won every tournament in global football by the World Cup. We've won the Olympics, the U20 World Cup, the U17 World Cup. But more needs to be done if we're going for the ultimate prize, which is the World Cup. We need to not just cure the symptoms, we need to cure the disease. We need to go to the base and build infrastructure. We need to take responsibility for what we desire. And by infrastructure, I don't mean white elephants and stadia that are built after big tournaments like the African Nations Cup. I mean fundamentally developing green spaces, encouraging young boys to play, building capacity, training scouts, training coaches, and building the whole ecosystem that permits you to produce great players and then create an upward mobility for those players by creating domestic leagues that could assimilate that talent, for them to showcase their talent and provide more talent for African national teams that will then translate into victory on the field at the international stage and at a very high level.
Sure.
So I still think we're making baby steps towards the right direction, but more needs to be done if our desires will match what we're doing on the ground.
So are the symptoms not winning at international level? Is that the symptoms of African football?
No, the symptoms is not that we don't win at international level. The thing is, if we desire the World Cup, more needs to be done. Our governments cannot just fashion policy that prepares for a World Cup 1 year before. It's work that you build over 10, 20 years. And to build that capacity, you don't build it with the intention of winning, you build it to create the platform and the necessary conditions that will allow you to compete. That's what we've been doing.
Sure. Oh my goodness. Sadiq, you report on African football teams all of the time. What is missing? What is the missing ingredient that will propel an African team all the way to the finals of the FIFA World Cup?
Like Kingsley mentioned, investment.
Right.
Massive investment in the African game. And one of the biggest, challenges of African football is that administrators and people who are supposed to be in authority do not reinvest the monies that they get from football. We need to help in the sustainability of the game, the monies that we accrue from the World Cup, from the other competitions, and from FIFA, the grants should go directly into rebuilding facilities, rebuilding capacity. We need to take steps. We do not need to prepare for 3 months or 2 months before the World Cup. We need to institute measures for years, a blueprint to rebuild African football. Enormously, the talents are available, but how to polish them. And so you see players who move from Africa to Europe at a very younger age, preparing them very well and training them and scoring against African teams. But there are very much talent in Africa who do not get the right kind of training. And some of the little details, African teams miss the little details because there are not many coaches with the requisite knowledge to be able to train these players adequately for the number of years that they are supposed to compete at the top level.
All right, don't think about this, Sadiq. Instant answer. Which region has the best football players on the African continent?
West Africa.
I don't know why I'm saluting West Africa, because Nigeria is on the couch watching the rest of the footy. So Nigerians, calm down. West Africans are the best at football. Coach, what do you think?
Yeah, it's important to have a mindset that is about creating success, and creating success is the processes of formulating winning mentalities in our processes, and this has to be a very deliberate approach with consistency and patience around it. And the important aspects that need to be instituted are the fundamental criteria of football, and these fundamentals has to be education of coaches, education of sports science, and then human performance experts,
Coach
refereeing, and then administrators, and then laying of genius structures. When you lay the genius structure, means that we are formulating and investing in youth system. Right. When you invest properly in the youth system, you are able to educate the young players so that when they get to the elite level, the fundamentals are rooted in their DNA, and every coach in this world will be able to handle them. And I believe that when we are able to do this, then we have the argument to be able to say that this World Cup or this Cup of Nations, it is a moment for us to begin to win. Winning is a process. Winning is just not going to win the next game. It's a matter of putting the right infrastructure, putting the right administrative work, putting the right, short to medium and then to longer term procession in terms of player development.
All right, Coach Masood, let me just ask you this.
A complete process.
Let me ask you this. I feel like we're getting the pep talk halfway through the game, pep talk from Coach Masood. I love his style. All right, here on my laptop, FIFA approves nationality switches. Have a look at my laptop. It's important. FIFA approves nationality switches. It's on my laptop. Approves nationality switches for 5 Ghanaian players in Europe. That is the headline that I was hoping to be able to share with you. Coach, does that make a difference? You could actually... Europe's been doing this for a long time, taking players from the African continent and using them in their European teams. You're taking European players with African heritage and putting them in your teams. Is that, excuse the pun, a game changer?
I think that as coaches, we have had the opportunity of being trained or having the opportunity to work in the European culture. And this gives you the opportunity to think in a more diverse way, in terms of knowing your culture and knowing other people's culture, and then knowing how to blend this aspect. And if we are ending in a moment where players are beginning to switch their nationality into their originals, it means that we are heading towards close moment where you find European countries winning the World Cup with a majority of their squads coming from Africa. It's now turning around. And I believe that when players begin to voluntarily, knowing that these are my roots, and I feel very privileged to get back and to pick the opportunities around the privilege in terms of playing for my national team is a big. In Ghana, we have Iñaki Williams, who is giving us all. We have Tariq Lamptey, who is giving us all. We had Ransford, who also came up. We had other players who are always on the pipeline of shooting up to play. I believe that that is how it's supposed to be in other African countries. And this switch is something that is really going to tell into the future.
We're almost out of time here.
We're
in extra time, Coach. Sorry, I'm going to push on a little bit. Here on my laptop is a quote that I know all three gents, you're going to know so well. In 1977, the brilliant Brazilian player Pele said, "An African nation will win the World Cup before the year 2000. Pele wasn't right on that particular issue, but what is the likelihood that there will be an African team winning? Coach, I'm going to share this conversation with your co-panelists. Kingsley, what year? 2000 was wrong. That's what Pele said. What year?
To be realistic, I think it could be done within 4 World Cups. So I'll put it at 16 to 20 years.
I hope I'm alive then. All right, there's somebody else I want to go to, and this is Gary Alsmith. He's a football reporter. He's reporting in Doha right now, and this is what he told us a little bit earlier.
There's still just 5 African teams in a continent of 54 nations. And so if you do the simple statistics or probability that an African team is going to go far, chances are likely not, because Europe, with its, disproportionate from an African point of view, number of teams is always going to advance because of the sheer numbers that they have. But in terms of whether this is the first time for an African team, no, we don't have any such thing this time. Ghana, Cameroon, Senegal, Morocco, Tunisia have all been at the World Cup before. They just have different legacies that they want to rewrite or relive.
Sadiq, so I'm just thinking about the South Africa 2010 FIFA World Cup legacy. Still got this beauty here. I won't play it because the sound engineers will be upset with me. So other than the beautiful Vuvuzela, which is now at games and matches and sports occasions all over the world, incidentally, banned in stadia at the Qatar World Cup. The Vuvuzela has been banned. But what else is the legacy of having the World Cup on African soil? Has that made a difference? That was back in 2010.
It's changed so much about Africa, the perception, the game, and what Ghana did, particularly in the World Cup. What Pele said has just been delayed, but it's not been denied. It's going to happen definitely from what Ghana did and showing the way. But the biggest legacy of that South Africa World Cup was the misconception of African football and Africans in general changed. There is a country in Africa that can host the entire world, and they did it in a very special manner.
All right, I'm going to go to YouTube here. Jamal says, "Hey guys, really our hope is growing much larger and larger this time." Jamal is from Ethiopia. You know, Africa is rich and blessed so much. No doubt we will have the World Cup soon. Coach Masood, he's got to say yes. It's going to be Ghana, right? Holding that cup aloft in a couple of weeks' time. Is it going to be the Black Stars? How far can you go?
We're speaking with realities and then objectivity. And I think that Africa still has a lot to put in place. Africa is representing and beginning to show the quality we have. With all respect to the predecessors, especially the big nations, there's still a lot to learn on that level. And as I said before, it is important that we still get our players more educated, Coach, because of the intelligence and the creativity of the African player.
Thank you, Sadiq. Thank you, Kingsley. Thank you to all of our football fans who've been talking and sharing your thoughts about the future of African football at the FIFA World Cup. We really appreciate you. Good luck to all of the African teams. Good luck to all of the teams, but particularly the African ones. Thanks for watching. I'll see you next time. Take care.